time. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your lunch hour here with the Chamber of Commerce. We're very excited to be presenting on ChatGPT and artificial intelligence today to help your businesses. I'd like to thank our sponsor of today's program, the City of Berkeley's Office of Economic Development. They're wonderful partners to the business community, and their sponsorship allows us to bring you all this great content. So we are recording this program. We'll archive it on our YouTube page later. And we're going to go through the presentation, and we ask that you please hold your questions until the end, and we'll make sure to leave ample time for Q&A. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Abby Feeder. If anyone was on our February webinar on building your Google business profile, that is why Abby looks familiar. We're delighted to welcome her back. So Abby is a web designer who loves helping people feel confident, calm, and intentional about their online presence. She offers custom websites, site management, graphic design and consulting services for clients, including law firms, event planners, museums, nonprofits, and other small businesses. She also teaches workshops around the Bay Area, focused on making digital tools more accessible for business owners. So without further ado, let's all welcome Abby Feeder. Thanks, Abby.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beth. Wonderful welcome. I'm excited to be back for my second workshop with the Chamber. And today, as you know, we are talking about ChatGPT and specifically how to get the best results from it to be useful to your business. So I will dive right in. As Beth said, I'm going to go through the whole presentation, and at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Feel free to start putting questions in the chat, and then I'll take a look at all of those at the end. I will send a link or I'll share a link at the end of this with the slides, so you can access those for reference if you want to look at anything again later. All right. Okay, as Beth said, my name is Abby Feeder, a web design business. I'll share this again at the end, but my contact information if anyone is interested in reaching out. I'm a web designer and digital marketing instructor based in San Francisco, so right here in the Bay Area. And for this presentation, we are focusing on OpenAI's ChatGPT. We're going to start with talking about what ChatGPT is, what it means, how that works, and then we're going to move into how to get effective results from it, what it means to prompt ChatGPT, and some techniques for getting useful results. Going to do some practical demonstrations, so showing how you might use ChatGPT for things like email writing, social media, and website content. I'm going to go over some tips and best practices for using AI-generated content, and then we will have time for Q&A. All right, so part one, understanding ChatGPT. What is ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is like a very advanced and smart chatbot. You can type in questions, requests, and it'll respond with helpful, hopefully relevant information. It's designed to understand what you're asking and provide answers that make sense, similar to having a conversation with a knowledgeable person. It's different than like a search engine in that it's not just showing you results, it is crafting new sentences, new information from previous information, rather than just regurgitating or copying something from somewhere else on the internet. You can use it for things like getting information, help with writing, or just chatting. It's like having a helpful assistant that's always ready to talk and help you out. How does it work? So it uses a type of artificial intelligence called a language model. So first, it learns, it is trained on huge amounts of texts, things like books, articles, websites. That helps it understand how people use language to be able to actually craft meaningful responses. And different iterations of ChatGPT use training from different amounts of training. So newer models are trained on more information than previous models. First part is it ChatGPT, the models learn, then it understands the questions. So when you type a question or request in, it reads and tries to understand what you're asking. And it tries to understand the context and give meaningful responses. So it generates answers based on what it's learned. It comes up with a response that makes sense for your questions. Functionally, that means it's looking for patterns and information similar to what it's learned before, based on that model that it's trained on. It then responds by writing out an answer for you to read. And we are going to focus a lot today on prompting. So I just want to highlight that when you type a question or request, that is the prompt. So that's the first definition. All right, so what can you do with ChatGPT? So some things a small business owner might want to use ChatGPT for could be things like customer support. So answering common questions, providing support, content creation, could be writing blog posts, social media, marketing, emails. Those are some of the demos we're going to look at today. Things like scheduling, things like market research. You can use it to gather information about trends, competitors. You can help you generate ideas, doing some brainstorming, can help with data analysis, training and onboarding, SEO, keyword research and generation, personal assistant tasks, and even feedback collection and analyzing feedback from customers. When I asked ChatGPT to explain how ChatGPT could help a business owner save time on writing emails, social media posts, website content, as it says here, can help a business owner save time by quickly generating well-written emails, social media posts, and website content. It can draft responses to customer inquiries, create engaging social media updates, and produce polished website copy based on the owner's input and guidelines. This automation reduces the time and effort needed for content creation, allowing the business owner to focus on other important tasks. And an important part of getting any kind of useful results from ChatGPT is learning about prompting. So I want to look at this response that we looked at earlier, which is what is ChatGPT, and just a little preview of how I got ChatGPT to give me this kind of response. So as we can see in this quick video, my first question, so just asking what is ChatGPT, gives a very technical answer. It's talking about the architecture, the models. So my next question, explain it to someone with no technical background. So that gets me a little more, see Beth laughing. I asked it to explain it with someone with no technical background, and then explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. And as you can see, each version gets a little more plain language. This last one is maybe a little too simplified for this audience, but just to show that when you keep iterating, so keep refining the audience, like the tone, the type of response you want, you can get something that's more useful. So if in your first, we're going to look more at refining prompts, but in your first attempt, if it's not quite the kind of answer you're looking for, you can just keep asking. All right, so that brings us to part 2, crafting effective prompts. So some recommendations for how to think about ChatGPT, how to approach this, is think about it like a new assistant. So they're new to the job, maybe they're new to the industry. You need to give a well-defined task and you need to provide context. They don't know as much as you do. You are the expert in your specific business, and that's important to keep in mind. To craft a good prompt, you need to be clear and specific. Put garbage in, gonna get garbage out. The more context that you give ChatGPT, the better the responses are going to be. With the caveat that try not to overwhelm the model too much by giving so much information that can overwhelm things and make it harder to get the results. So keep your input concise and relevant while providing the necessary context for your request. It can be helpful to let ChatGPT know your expectations. So if you want an essay, that's a different request than if you want one paragraph, than if you want one sentence. you can say things like, I want a list of bullet points. You can say a sales pitch, you could say it's a letter, an email. So giving kind of the framework of what format you want your response in is gonna give you better results. And then another tip is just to think about what you know about the task that you are assigning and tell ChatGPT the requirements and constraints, and then you can let it fill in the rest. So, and this doesn't have to be a formal brief. You can just put in things like, I know this needs to be, a very polite email. It should be less than 2 paragraphs maybe. And what you need from it, maybe I need to find out a bit more about this project and set up a time to meet for this client. So give it the things you know about it, and then it can fill in the rest there. So depending on your request, some essential context might be things like who the audience is. So is this for clients? Is this for prospects? Is this for people who are very tech savvy? Is this for people who don't know anything about tech? The purpose, so why you need this, what it's supposed to do, the tone, the style, the length, the platform, if you're going to be using this for a specific platform, any key points that you want to include, any keywords to include, and these are specific for when you want to have a written output. And my tip is, if you don't like the first response that you get from ChatGPT, kind of come back to this list and see if there's other things that you can add to it to add additional context. You may not need all of these things for every prompt, right? But if you are not totally happy with the result, try adding some more of these to it. All right, so I'm gonna look at a good versus bad prompts here. So if you prompt it with something like, write something about my company, this is not great because it is vague. It assumes that ChatGPT knows the context of your request, which it probably will not. So you need to give more context, such as, what company is this? About the company? Are we talking about the products, the team, the mission? How long should this piece be? What's the tone? Who is this for? What is it for? I will mention that there is a new feature in beta in ChatGPT that does store some memory. So if you're using it for your business a lot, it may actually learn, it may actually save that information about your business. And so if you're using that feature, it may start saving some of these things, but it is still important to add context and add and not assume that it just knows the context without that. All right, so a better version of this would be something like, write a 2-sentence description of ABC Cafe that highlights our 5 locations around the Bay Area and our Mediterranean food and decor. So here I'm including these key points from the list of length, the subject, and key points that I want it to focus on. All right, so one of the core concepts of effectively using ChatGPT is that you can do iterative prompting. And that's what makes this generation of AI so helpful, is that you can have actual conversations with it. It's not just one request. It's not just one-off things. You can build on your previous responses. So this means you can adjust your prompts based on the initial response. And it can be hard to cover all the context in your initial request, or even to know what context is going to be important. So just start somewhere. Even if you're not including all these things, just start with the request and then you can refine from there. Don't get discouraged if the first result is not very helpful. The result might be way too long or have completely the wrong tone, but you can iterate on that. And often you don't know what you want until you actually see it. And AI is not going to get offended, so you can easily change your mind. You can tell it it's wrong. You can say, not like that, change everything. That's all fine and part of it. And with a lot of other creative things, it's a lot easier to start from something than to start from a blank screen, to write something, to edit a draft rather than start writing from a fully blank screen. So you can just use this as a starting point. So get started somewhere and then you can build from there. And this specific ability to build on those conversations is what makes this era of chatbots so unique and so widely adopted right now. All right, so the first demo we have here is drafting the outline for this class. So in drafting the outline for this, and you'll get the slides for this, so if you want to look back at this video again, you'll be able to. But I started with crafting the class description. So I put in a little bit of information about the class and then further refined to get a description that matched the right tone and language for this audience. So keeping in mind that, I'm the one teaching the class. I know what I think is going to be most helpful for this audience. It's up to me of what things we're really going to focus on and go in depth with. So, I'm not just taking blank what it says, but using this to help me think about and narrow in on what the class is going to be and what the right audience is. So I iterate a few times in here to focus on, I want it to be more about prompting. I want it to really have a certain tone. And then once I got to a description that pretty well matched what I was looking for, then I ask it to start on an outline. And I found it really helpful to start with that first little bit of getting that short description to be the right tone and have the right focus, so that once I get to the outline thing, it already knows it's much more accurate about what I want to cover in the class than if I just had to generate the outline from the first thing. It might be too far off. So using that as the first step and then going to the outline was very beneficial in this one here. Here's going through scrolling through some of the outline that it has here. And then my next step from here was to ask it to flesh out certain sections of it. So, I'm focusing on effective prompts. So I asked it to then write out what it would include in this section. And, then kind of ignored the other parts of this for now. But then you can see it gives you a pretty full outline of it. Here's some examples you could use. Here's how you might start or do transitions from different sections. Get to the end of that one. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to move into more of the demonstrations. So for this, we're looking at using ChatGPT for emails, social media, and website content. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is newsletter emails. So if you have a newsletter for your business, you probably want to have a welcome email for new subscribers. Here's our example scenario. You need to write a welcome email for new newsletter subscribers, highlighting the benefits of subscribing and encouraging them to visit your website. The initial prompt might be something like, write a welcome email for new subscribers. A more refined prompt for that would be, draft a warm welcome email for new newsletter subscribers, introducing the company, highlighting the exclusive content they will receive, and inviting them to explore our website. Adding a little more detail there. And we have this video is going to walk through that as well. Apologies if it's a little small on here. But so the first version of this, the tone is a little more formal. It's a longer email than I want. So in the next one, I give a little more detail to get it to be more what I'm looking for. And then to get even more specific, I am, here, I'll pause this here. So to get more specific, I need to give it more information about the actual business that we're covering. What is this exclusive content? What is the company all about? Why are people joining this newsletter? So I started with having ChatGPT generate for me a business to use in this example. In real life, you will have the information about your business that you can put in. You can always just copy and paste text that you have about your business, maybe on your website or in a brochure or something. So you don't have to write everything from scratch every time, but maybe you paste in your business description, something like that. And For this, since I had the information about the business directly in this chat, I can tell it to write an email about this business, and it has the context because it is in the same chat. If it wasn't already in this conversation, then I would need to add that information to my request so it knew what to do. So here, starting with, this is generating the information about the business that then I'm going to use to generate the newsletter. So we have the business, then I'm asking it to come up with the newsletter. It's going to give you subject line. It's going to give you, see the subject line, see dear subscriber's name, have the full email there. And then you can get more specific with your narrowing this down. If maybe this is a bit long, we're going to get more specific about the business in the request here. So I'm asking it and saying, write a welcome email for new newsletter subscribers, introduce the company, what they can expect from the newsletter. This right here is the refined prompt that we're using. Highlighting exclusive design tips, special offers, event invitations. So here I'm getting specific about what the exclusive things are to include, benefits are to include in the newsletter. Add a little bit in here. And then here, so you'll find it might be sometimes annoying when you're asking, when your ChatGPT is giving you a request, it outputs it line by line. So you kind of have to wait till it's all, you can read as it's outputting, or you can wait till it's all done and then scroll through it. In this case, it gave me two different options. And these are both, they're different than the first request. And it's giving me two options because ChatGPT is always learning. And so it wants to know which option you like better. That's just kind of a test feature in there that you might see occasionally where it's going to give you two different outputs, and selecting which one you like better helps the models know, learn about how to respond. Okay. All right, so that's an example of newsletter emails. You might also use it for more one-on-one individual communication emails. It can be helpful for things like responding to a inquiry. If you don't have a template for how you respond to emails, it can be helpful to just have some assistance in crafting that, and then you can edit and refine it yourself. But say this is an email that we received from a customer. I could input this into ChatGPT. And in this example, I'm using I'm using a interior design studio as the example business here. So this is a client inquiry. And I'm going to look at responses when we ask it to just draft a response to this email versus draft a response to this email that will be warm, friendly, and brief. And it includes what my actual ask is in this. So find out the timeline, how big the current room is, and set up a time to meet. So we can look at, again, apologies, I know these are a bit small. Let these load and you can see the responses side by side. So, all right, so we have on the left, this was just the general response to this email. And so ChatGPT is just going to pull on what it knows about how people respond to client inquiries. Whereas the one where we gave it a little more information has the specific questions that we want to ask. So the one on the left asks, just has ideas about what it should ask. So it's asking about design preferences and your budget and timeline, setup, additional services that you might be interested in. That may not be something you want to ask in your email. So the one on the right has the things that we told it to ask. And these kinds of using this for emails be really helpful of, often you have an email, you might have an email that you just don't, like, you need to reply to, but don't totally know where to start. And so just using these as a starting point and kind of throwing in what you need, you need from it. Like we need the timeline and this certain information. Use that to get you started and help you just with the wording. With emails especially, it's really helpful to include the general length you're looking for and the tone. You can also put in an email you've already written and ask it to help you make it sound a little warmer or more professional, or make it shorter, or things like that. Okay. All right. So at this point, just gonna briefly pause and give a little overview of how the ChatGPT interface works. So when you are using ChatGPT yourself and you are logged in, you will see something like this. So in the top left, you click to create a new chat. New chat is a new conversation. It'll save previous conversations in the left-hand panel that you can go back to. You create a new chat. This is the main interaction area here. So this is where the responses will appear. And then down here at the bottom is where you enter your prompt. Okay. All right. So another example of how you might use ChatGPT for content is Instagram. So in this scenario, I have a graphic that I want to post on Instagram, and I want a little help coming up with a caption. So this is an actual graphic of mine from a website project for actually Berkeley business, Bright Green Strategies. So when we launched the website, wanted to post this announcing the new site. And ChatGPT now has the ability to let you upload images, and ChatGPT will process what is in the image. So I didn't have to describe what the image was for or anything. I just uploaded the image itself and asked for Instagram caption ideas for this graphic. So that feature I think is really helpful. It also meant I didn't have to put in the name of the business. It just read it directly from the graphic. Some tips that work well for this kind of thing is you can ask ChatGPT for multiple options. It's especially helpful when you have kind of short things, or you're really trying to refine like the subject line of something or a caption for something. You can ask for a few different options. And you can upload an image, as we said, for reference in your prompt. This also works for things like data analysis. You can upload like a table and ask it to pull insights from it. And to upload things, you can just drag and drop your file into the interface area. You can also, in the little chat bar, there's a paperclip attachment icon. You can click that and find files from your computer or from other cloud accounts. Okay, so when I gave this prompt, come up with 3 options for an Instagram caption for this graphic announcing the most recent website I launched. It gave me 3 options here. Because it knows it's Instagram, it added hashtags and emojis without me having to ask. With the hashtags, it's not doing any research, or it's not checking which hashtags are popular. This is just giving some ideas. It's then up to me, up to you to actually look and see what makes sense to use for your post. It tends to put in a lot of emojis, more than I would personally use, so I would adjust some of those. But it is a great starting point for that. Another thing about the ChatGPT interface is I just want to briefly explain what all these buttons on the very bottom here, what those mean. So if we look at this, the speaker icon will read aloud the response to you. This one here will allow you to copy and paste. So if you're using code that you're going to move into a code editor, or just text that you're going to put into Instagram or text editor, it's a one click to copy and paste. Sometimes you just want it to try again without changing anything in your prompt. You can click and have it just regenerate, try a new answer. If it's really a bad response, as in it's not what you would expect from it, it's inappropriate, there's something wrong with it, you can just say bad response, like this was just not right. And then this one allows you to change the model, and we'll talk about this a little more later, but depending on what plan you're on, you have access to different models within ChatGPT. Okay. Another social media use case would be to draft a post for LinkedIn. So in this scenario, we are acting as the same interior design studio we were using earlier, and we want to do a LinkedIn post promoting our services, specifically getting started now to get ready for the summer. This was initially crafted in May or June. Do this as a pre-holiday post also. And the action we want people to take is to click the link to book a free consultation. So my prompt is telling it to draft a LinkedIn post. We're saying what we want it to do, promote the interior design services, highlight that's a good time to start to get ready for summer events, and the CTA, the call to action, is to click the link and book a free consultation. Make the post 3 very short paragraphs, and the tone should be warm and energetic. With LinkedIn posts, they can really vary a lot in length, so helpful to specify the type of post that you are going for when you're using that. So in this example, I'm going back to my previous chat, which I can access in the left-hand panel. I'm going back to the chat that already has all the information about this interior design business. So I don't have to add things like the name of the business and the services. It already has a little bit of information about it. And anything that I've done to refine the tone is still going to be saved within this chat here. You can click in this left-hand panel to view. You can click to view or continue past conversations. It automatically is going to name them based on what you talked about. You can click the 3 dots and change the name if you want to, if you know you're going to come back to that and want to save it. You also can show or hide the sidebar panel with this little icon here, right there. Okay, and you can see in our example here, so ask for the 3 short paragraphs. It may or may not it has some issues sometimes with like exact word counts or exact paragraph counts. So, it's a good guideline to put in here, but it may not be give me exactly what I was looking for. But it gave me some good short paragraphs, so nothing's too long. It has our book now consultation, and then you would of course put in the link that you want from there. Again, it uses more emojis than I would in this, so I'd probably get rid of those. And then you can, of course, further refine. I could ask it to change the tone or the content here. Here, I just asked it to change the headline of this isn't really news, it's more of a updated promotion. So let's try something else for that. So change the headline. And it gives me another idea of how I could start this section here. Okay. Another, so the last of our types of demos, so we did email, social media. Last one is going to be websites. So the first thing we're going to talk about with that is rewriting content that you already have. So if you already have a website, you probably already have a decent amount of content on it, and you can use this to kind of refine and enhance the content that you already have on there. So say this is the current business description. This is, again, for that interior design studio, boutique interior design firm specializing in creating luxurious and functional spaces for residential and commercial clients. Our team of experienced designers and decorators works closely with clients to bring their vision to life blending timeless elegance with modern sophistication. All right, so this is what we currently have. And in this case, I would paste this description in. So you're seeding the prompt with the current content, and then I'm going to ask it to rewrite this description to have more energy. I'm going to give some details about what makes this firm unique, which is going to give us more unique outputs. So I'm going to say this firm is known for having a really fun and collaborative process with their clients. Their customers are typically people who care a lot about their spaces, are interested in interior design, and have money to spend on the projects, but need help figuring out what to do. So here I'm giving notes about what makes this unique, and that's going to get, of course, more unique results, and describing the audience so that our description can really focus on who this is for. So when I do that, this is the result again. I'm not going to read this whole thing through, but you can see it definitely has more energy. It talks more about what makes this so unique and really focuses on who the clients are. The next, you might want to refine this even further. So a next iteration of this might be something like, okay, I like this tone, but the first example we gave was a very short description, and we actually need something that short for the website. So keep this tone, but come up with a shorter version, about 5 sentences. And then you can also give more details like, okay, I also want to mention where this firm is located, because that's important detail to include there. So with that prompt, then I get this shorter description that has the tone of the second one, but more of the length of the first one. So it's kind of similar to when we were looking at coming up with the class description for this. If you spend a little time refining the tone earlier on, then you can do things like then it's easier to adjust the length of something or use that to flesh out a longer description of the business once you've kind of narrowed in on the tone, even if it's in a shorter piece of text. All right, and then this is a key point with all of the things we've talked about is once you have a result you like, you're not totally done. You still need to make it your own. So whatever you're using it for, you now want to make your own edits to the text. So make sure everything makes sense. Make sure it covers the important points that you have deemed, whatever you have deemed is important. Make sure it's covering that, and make sure it sounds like you and your brand. And you can give it more context and more examples of your brand and your voice, but ultimately it's up to you to make sure that it fits with your brand and what you want to say. Okay, next website example is you can use it for blogs. If you have a blog for your business, a lot of different ways you can use it for ideas, for actually writing some of the content, for SEO, titles, descriptions, whatever piece of it you feel like you could use a thought partner for, or you just don't love doing as much. It's a great use for that. So this one, using the same business, the interior design firm, our prompt is going to be come up with 10 ideas for blog posts for this business to post this summer, and the goal is getting them found online. So goal is that people are going to come across these blog posts naturally, and then that will bring them into this business's website. And again, I'm using the same conversation as last time, so it already has all the information for this business. If it doesn't know your business yet, you'll need to provide some context. And then also, if you already have some sort of blog marketing strategy, you can include that. Like if you already have certain content pillars that you want to cover, you can seed it with that as well. Okay, so with that prompt, these are the results. So it gives me 10 different, basically, titles for posts. If you find ones you like, great, you can just run with that. My next prompt is I'd like to show some of them, or I'd like some of them to focus more on showing potential clients what it's like to work with a designer. So I know that's the general theme, but I want some ideas of how that could actually look. So adding that, it's going to give me, again, 10 ideas, including some that are more focused on that request. So behind the scenes, about the design process, find success stories, things like that. So if I was using this, I would then look at both of these lists and pick one to start writing. If we're going to actually post these things. So the next step might be write an outline for one of the posts. So I could do write an outline for what the last one would look like. Some other things you could do with around blog posts, you could ask it to create a content calendar for the summer. Maybe you do want to use these posts. Maybe you want to add some of your own. So you could add give your own list of the 10 posts that you want featured on the calendar, using some of these, and maybe some of these gave you other ideas, inspired some other things. So you could give, okay, these are the 10 posts I want, create a content calendar for this summer, and then it'll outline that for you of when you're going to post what and help you get your planning going. All right, so in this one, I asked it to create an outline for the last of its suggestions. And it is going to outline the different sections here, including a hook, including the conclusion here. It also, since we talked a little bit about the purpose of these, it is including a call to action at the end. So encourage readers to schedule a consultation. So that's a good strategic suggestion of that with your blog posts. You want them to maybe funnel towards some service. So use this to move them along in that experience. Now, if I want to start using this, I would copy. So you can just use that little copy button, copy it into Google Docs or wherever you're going to actually flesh out the full post. Some other prompts that you might find helpful is you could ask it, what graphics should I include in this post? What images or custom graphics are we going to put with this? You could say, give me a short SEO description for this post. You could ask it to give some heading ideas that include certain keywords. For something like that, you could say, give me 5 heading ideas that all use these keywords. You could ask something like, what should the URL slug for this post be? At that point, you should probably have the title set. So, set the title, and then, okay, based on this title, what would the description, what would the URL slug be? So you can use it to kind of flesh out some of the other elements of a blog post, besides just the actual content of the post there. Okay. Those are concludes the demos. Some other ideas of potential things that you might want to use ChatGPT for. Things like writing video scripts if you're filming content, or testimonials, content calendar planning, competitor analysis. You can use it to form research about what other people are doing, their websites, their strategies. You can do user research. You can use it for repurposing content. So say you already have a blog post and you want to turn it into a infographic, or you want to create several LinkedIn posts from that. You can give it the blog post and then say, use this content for these different things. You can use it for data analysis. If you have, some website analytics, you could show it those analytics and then ask it specific questions of like, okay, how do we, what are some ways I could use this information to target for a better marketing strategy? Or what are some things I could do for to sell more of this product? You can use it for, at this time of year, maybe an end of year update email to your newsletter subscribers or customers, for feedback requests, referral requests, any kind of business updates. If you have a shop, you can use it for product descriptions, use it for actual on-page content, for service pages, landing pages. And that includes both questions about, you can ask it questions about how to design or lay out things, and then actually generating the content that is going to go in those things. You could use it to generate sample FAQs and to answer them. But I think more creative uses, what are some questions people might have about interior design services, and use that to then inspire what's going to go on your FAQs page. You can you can provide a completed project and ask it to write a case study around it. You can also feed it customer reviews and ask it to come up with key takeaways or a summary. So that's another kind of, it's a form of the data analysis and user research of, if you have a bunch of reviews in Google reviews, maybe copy and paste or take a screenshot of that and then ask ChatGPT what some takeaways are. And that might give you some good language to use in your website or social media about what it is that people love about working with you. All right. So now I'm going to move into part 4, talking about some tips and best practices for using AI generated content. So we touched on this briefly earlier, but it's very important to edit the content and make it your own. Your goal should always be to make it more valuable, more original, and more you. With the increased access to ChatGPT, there's even more content out there in the world. And so to actually stand out, you just need to be more yourself, really. If everyone's just copying and pasting things, they're going to start to sound more similar, right? So it is up to you to make it more unique and make sure it represents you. So some ways to do that are adding personal stories and personal touches to the text, to add your own examples and insights based on your own experiences with your clients and customers. Tailor any references or examples to make sure that they're relevant to your audience. Delete any redundant or irrelevant information. Reorganize the sentence and paragraph structure, and overall just make it sound like you and your brand voice. Ultimately, these are all just kind of what makes good writing and good marketing, giving people something specific to connect to. And that's what's going to help you stand out and not just sound like everyone else. And, this is what makes, when we have just so much, like proliferation of so much content online, there's a lot of content that isn't actually saying much or isn't actually useful. So if you can come up with something that is actually valuable to your audience, which again, only you're going to know, and actually sounds like a person, that's going to stand out more and be more effective for you. Okay, another thing is you want to avoid plagiarism. It's all still a little confusing at this point, and copyright laws haven't totally caught up to what's going on. But basically, to avoid plagiarism, I recommend transforming the content so that it becomes your own original work. So paraphrasing, rewording things to express the same ideas in your own words, changing around sentence structure. And hopefully, if you're doing these things anyway to make it your own, it's gonna end up being your own thing. My recommendation is do not use AI generated content verbatim and pass it on as your own. Do not just copy and paste. Do not just immediately send, publish. Always review it and make adjustments. It's gonna produce better content and it's going to just be more authentic as well. Okay, some other ethical considerations to think about. Depending on the degree to which you're using ChatGPT and whatever it is you're working on, you might want to disclose it. You might have noticed that on certain pages in this presentation, I put generated by ChatGPT. I chose to put it where I directly copied and pasted things written by ChatGPT that I did not make any edits to. Any other text was either fully written by me or inspired by something from ChatGPT, but modified enough to be my own original work. There is no definitive threshold for what that means for what's your own versus ChatGPT. It's really just up to you to make that call. And that's not to say you need to say you're using it every time you're using it for anything. It's, just good idea to think about what your customers, what people reading this might reasonably expect from you. People generally care less about how it's actually produced and more about just how helpful or interesting it is. So don't overthink it too much. And also, people do not like feeling duped or tricked, and trust is very important. So consider what people would reasonably expect from you and use that kind of as your benchmark. Okay, guiding principle with this is when you're creating content, just create content that provides value to your audience. Keep in mind that you're not just creating content for the sake of getting more content out there. You are creating content that is going to provide some value to your audience, it is serving some purpose. You can definitely have ChatGPT just crank out blog posts, but if they're not actually valuable, then no one's going to read them and they aren't going to benefit you. So just more and more content is not necessarily useful. Focus on quality over quantity. That's also what Google, what search engines care about, and it's what people care about too. So that long-term will be beneficial. And always make sure that you're checking for accuracy and verifying facts. ChatGPT, is just doing this based on what it's learned and predicting information, but it's not fact checking things. So that is your responsibility to make sure that things are correct. Okay. Big tip is remember that you're the expert on your business, not ChatGPT. So ultimately trust yourself to know what is best and what makes sense. Okay. Quick note on using ChatGPT versus other tools. There's a lot of specialized AI tools out there. There's copywriting and marketing specific tools like Grammarly, Jasper, CopyAI. There's also AI tools that are built directly into platforms that you're probably already using, like Google Ads, Google Workspace, Canva. There's also more direct competitors to ChatGPT, things like Gemini, which uses Google's own large language models instead of the GPT models. There's Claude. There's a few others out there too, and they all are they're just trained on different models. So their programming is just a bit different. My general approach is to think about ChatGPT like a generalist. So if you don't know where to start here, and if it's not giving you the results you want, you can go to a different tool. You can also ask it for recommendations of other tools that you might use. And you can certainly try using Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude all at the same time. You could ask the same question to it and you're going to get 3 different results. Some people like some of the different platforms better for coding versus writing prose. You can experiment a bit with that. In my opinion, I find it easiest to just kind of have one main go-to, and then especially if you're just getting started with using AI, it can be overwhelming to have to think about like which platform works for which thing. So this is a good starting point. It's that generalist, and then if you find you want more specialized tools, there's a lot out there that you can look into as well. Okay. A kind of warning of there are certain things that you should not use ChatGPT for. And if you have employees in your business, it's a good idea to go over some of these things with them, as well as some of the other best practices we've talked about, to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page of, you should not put any personally identifiable information into ChatGPT for yourself or for your customers. So if you're putting something, if you're using it for data analysis, for instance, make sure you remove any personally identifiable information. ChatGPT or these models train on what goes into them. There are some cases, some settings where you can change that, but for the most part, you should kind of assume that whatever you're putting in might be used in future training. And so you don't want to put in that kind of sensitive information. You should also not use it for, emergency situations, inappropriate content, medical or legal advice, or critical decision making. Okay. Some things that have changed since the initial launch of ChatGPT, and are continuing to evolve is there keeps being newer and newer models coming out. So that means that the models have better reasoning ability. They're getting more accurate, less likely to hallucinate, which is what they call it when it makes up information. It also now allows for voice and image inputs. So I showed you an example of an image input. You can also use voice, so you can ask it something more like how you would use Siri or Alexa. It's now, there are in some cases prompt and reply suggestions, so it'll help you create, make it an easier interaction for you of giving you suggestions of what to say next. If you're on the paid plan, you have access to DALL-E, which is image generation. It can generate images for you. There's also custom GPTs, which are free to use, but you have to be on the paid plan to be able to create your own custom GPTs. And a link here that has a little more information about some of those features. Okay, also have some links here to other resources from OpenAI about the different features, the new models, and a link to the pricing page. We've mostly been looking at things just on the main free plan, but there are paid plans as well. Okay, so now that is the full presentation. Now the Q&A. I do have some sample questions to get us started, a little more information to go over. We'll start by just going through a couple of these things that I think might come up, and then we'll fully open it up to questions. So start thinking about questions. All right, so just go through this briefly. What information is used to train GPT models? A wide range of text data, so books, articles, websites, other written content, helps the model learn about language patterns, context, information across different topics. Maybe isn't a common question, but just how to actually get started with this. So it's very easy to create a ChatGPT account. Make sure, or you just go to chatgpt.com and then you can sign up. You can also use it without one, but then it's not going to remember anything about you for future uses. Some things that might come up, some issues that might come up is there's a lot of demand on their systems. So sometimes you might get a message of like, we're experiencing high demand, come back later, just come back later. There's also on the different models, on the free plan, you have access to lower models. So you may hit a limit of how many requests you can send in a day or in a time period, how many requests you can send to different models. And so if you see those errors, that's what that kind of thing means. Okay, I do have a few other things, but let's start by just opening it up, and then we can cover some of those other things.
Yes, thank you so much, Abby. We do have a couple questions, but I think we addressed the first one that yes, it's free to use. So thank you. And then we have a couple other technical questions. Jenny wants to know if you could show an example of how to perform a competitor analysis. And also, what is the best way to use ChatGPT for a resume? So those are two sort of example requests. And then we have a couple of questions.
Okay. All right. So for here, we'll pull ChatGPT to the screen. So we are now in ChatGPT here. So if we want to do a competitor analysis, I mean, you could certainly start by just saying, we'll get a little more specific, but just to show broad starting, competitor analysis of interior design firms in the Bay Area and see what it comes up with here. Now, it's important to remember, depending on the plan you're on, you may not have access to the internet. So certain things like this, where you're actually going to, if you're actually going to be asking about certain businesses and wanting it to look at like their websites, you may need access to the internet, which this current version does not have. So that'd be on a paid plan. There's also other tools you can use, but something like this, it's gonna, it may guide you through the steps here. So here are some things you might want to do. I might do something, this will give you, overview. You could dive in and ask more questions about how to do it, any of these specific steps. I might do something like pull up the website for one of them. And, you could copy and paste or take screenshots and send those in and ask questions about that. But this is one way to just get started with that, of get some tips of kind of overview of how you would do these things. Some of these things, and then some of these you will need more specialized tools like special SEO tools, or just doing Googling or your own research to actually get that. Yes, okay, so that's the, I got something else to say on the competitor analysis. If I think of it, I will come back to that one. But that would be getting started with this. And at any point along the way, you can just ask for more advice of how you do certain things, or you can say like, okay, here's this list of all these things, help me pull out some insights from it. Here's all these services. What are the 5 most common from this list, or something like that. And then the other question was about resumes, I believe. So with using it for a resume, I would probably start by putting in your existing resume. You might be able to upload that as a file, or you might just copy and paste the text directly in there, and then ask it to, you could start by just like, improve this resume if you don't really know where you're going with it. You could also do something like, okay, here's the job description I'm applying for. Help me optimize the resume for this job. You could say, I want it to sound more professional, or I want it to focus. I feel like it's not covering enough of my experience in my interpersonal experience. How could I add more of that to it? So you can ask those specific questions, or you can just ask it to kind of rephrase things. I would probably end up using it on more like on some specific things. So if I have a, description of what I did in a certain job, maybe I'll put those specific bullets in and say, condense these into 2 instead of 3, or make these sound more impressive, or something like that. So using it for little things in it, as well as, I think, was probably going to get you more fine-tuned results than just giving it the whole thing and say, improve. If you have any follow-ups to that, let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see if we get any follow-ups. Couple more questions coming in here. Since ChatGPT can help with SEO, is there a way it can help with trending hashtags for social media?
So it can give you ideas, but again, these versions that aren't actually checking the internet, they're not going to be able to get the actual data of what is currently trending hashtags. So I would say other tools are going to be better suited for that. There are now custom GPTs, which are more specialized tools within here that haven't used a ton, but there's some that are more geared towards social media things. So I'd say at this point, I would use ChatGPT more for the ideas and then check them in Instagram versus using this to give you the top ranking ones.
Great. Let's see. Can you use it to create a list of combinations of names with variants and then search for them online? For example, like genealogy research. Are you familiar with that type of use? Such as first name Jim or James or Jimmy with last name a couple different spellings.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. You could definitely use it to generate the names. I don't think you could use it to, I don't know of a way to directly then like search for each of those names within here. I think you need to then take that to Google. There, again, some of the GPT plans are connected to the internet. They use Bing for search results for that. Interesting to know. But yeah, you could use this to do a list. Like you create a list of variations of the name James Brown, and maybe give some examples. And if you want different
I think
variations of the last
you could
name
also
or
have
the
like
same last
Braun,
name.
Braun is
Oh,
a
true.
version of last name. Surname variants.
Yeah, surname variants, yes.
Well, I'm excited to see this.
All right, let's see what it does.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
All right.
decent.
And Kenny has a question. I'm not sure I understand it completely. So if I ask it incorrectly, Kenny, you can unmute and ask Abby directly. He's wondering how to, I think you can upload a video and I think it can edit some for you by calling other applications. It may be a paid version that requires that. And he's also wondering how to use the voice to text prompt. And if I got that wrong, Kenny, feel free to unmute and ask.
The first one was a little bit different than what I was getting at. Maybe I didn't prompt it correctly. But sometimes you have a lot of footage that you've already filmed and you want to create a script for that using ChatGPT. How has ChatGPT helped people make something out of that footage that's already been captured?
That's interesting. I honestly, I don't know about that specific use case. I
think
I'm
there's
also
probably
not
other
sure if you could.
tools that might be best
Yeah,
for that.
my instinct would be yes. I know there are a lot of good video editing AI tools and things that can kind of pull clips out of footage you already have. So I think a different tool is probably going to be better suited for that. The only thing I can think of as like directly in here would be maybe you're giving like an overview of like what the clips you have are and asking for ideas of how they might go together or how to create a story or script from that. But I don't know if it can process video at this point or if it's just images.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you said script making, and that was probably more along the lines of writing a script from scratch, right? And then filming it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Or from a storyboard or something like that.
Great. Yeah, and the second question was, it said there's speech to text. I don't know where that's at. I don't see that functionality, unless maybe it's a paid version.
I don't think it is paid version right now. Let's see. How can I enter prompts with the voice? Example if oh, okay. I think the use voice in the web. So there is a mobile app for ChatGPT on iOS and Android, and I think it's easier to do it on that. I honestly have not tried using it here. As you can see, I've not tried to set that up. Yeah, I thought that was now a free feature. It might just be on the plus plan, so it might just be a paid feature for here, because there is no microphone icon showing up here.
But
But
in
you
that-
would click that and then be able to ask.
And in the app, you said there might be that option in the app.
Yeah, let me go back to the pricing page. Yeah, that might, I may have just not read this quite right. That might still be just a paid feature to be able to do the voice input. But I do think they're frequently changing around what features are available at different levels. So that is worth keeping an eye on. And worth looking at the mobile app as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Beth, you're muted.
Thank you very much. Abby, I think that's it for questions in the chat. So we'll go ahead and stop here. Thank you so much for this really informative presentation. I think we're all going to walk away with a lot of new uses for ChatGPT. So just a reminder for everyone who's on the call, we will send everybody who registered a thank you email, which will include a link to the recording, possibly a link to Abby's slides if she wants to share that, or any other handouts and links and how to contact Abby if you have more questions or want to engage with her further for any of her other services offered. So thank you for spending your lunch hour with the Chamber, and Abby, thank you again to the Office of Economic Development, and we look forward to seeing you at a future learning workshop. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you all.